The briefing tent at Forward Operating Site Orion was packed shoulder to shoulder with Delta operators, tech officers, and mission planners. Dust hung in the air, drifting in soft swirls around the glowing maps projected on the central table. The mood was serious, until she walked in. Sergeant Lena Rourke stepped inside quietly, wearing a plain tan t-shirt, sleeves rolled up against the desert heat. On her right forearm sat a faded, almost ghostly tattoo, an indistinct emblem warped by time, sun, and scars. She didn't seem to care who noticed it. She never did. The Delta operators noticed immediately. "Look at that," one whispered, elbowing his teammate. "Did she get that done at a street fair?" "No way, that's real ink," another chuckled. "Looks like she tried to draw it on herself." A few smirked openly. Some didn't bother hiding their laughter. To them, the tattoo looked old, poorly done, almost childish. And no one recognized the symbol, just a set of angular lines circling a small flame, barely visible. Lena didn't react. She simply walked to the equipment crates, checking over a stack of encrypted comm modules. She moved with a calm, practiced precision, but the kind of presence that didn't demand attention and therefore rarely got it. Captain Hale, the Delta team leader, looked her over like she was a mechanic who wandered into a pilot's brief. "Sergeant," he called out. "You sure you're in the right tent?" "Here to issue comm packages and sit in on the signal routing update, sir," she replied. Right, he muttered, half distracted. Then his eyes drifted to her forearm, and his smirk returned. "That tattoo, what is that? Some kind of biker club?" A few men laughed again. Lena glanced at it, rubbed at the faded lines with her thumb. "Something like that. You know," Hale said loud enough for his team to hear, "if you want a real tattoo, I got a guy in Fayetteville. Does good work. We can fix, whatever that is." More laughter. But the tent fell silent as the flap was thrown open. General Mason stepped inside. Every man straightened instinctively. This wasn't just any general, this was the mission commander for the entire northern sector, known for leading from the front and having a reputation carved from 3 decades of quiet, classified operations. He carried himself with the unspoken authority of someone who had seen more than anyone in the room could imagine. He scanned the crowd with sharp eyes. "Good morning," he said. "Let's get started." He stepped toward the central table but stopped when he noticed Lena beside the crates. His gaze lowered to her faded tattoo. Slowly, a small, knowing smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. "Sergeant Rourke," he said. "I didn't know you were supporting this run. I was asked to assist with comms, sir." Hale stepped forward. "General Mason, we're all set to begin as soon as." But the general wasn't listening. Instead, he reached down to his own uniform sleeve and rolled it up. The tent went dead still. There, on his forearm, fresh, sharp, unmistakable, was the exact same tattoo. The same angular circle. The same flame in the center. The same symbol the men had just mocked. Except his wasn't faded. His hadn't weathered decades of sun, dust, and shrapnel. But it was identical. The operators stared. Hale's jaw went slack. General Mason held his arm next to Lena's, comparing them for a beat before speaking. "Yours is older," he said to her quietly. "A lot older." "Yes, sir," Lena replied. "You earned it before I did." He nodded with genuine respect. Before most people even knew the unit existed. The operators looked at each other, confused, unsure whether to breathe. Mason turned, addressing them directly. "For those of you who don't know," he said, voice calm but weighty, "this mark belongs to the Ember Program, Task Force Ember, to be exact. A unit so classified it didn't officially exist for nearly 20 years. The men froze. Task Force Ember was rumored among special operations circles, whispers of an early-era black unit specializing in recoveries, rescues, and infiltration missions so deep that only a handful ever heard details. A predecessor to several modern special missions groups, operating in shadows before modern tech existed. Most believed it was a myth. Sergeant Rourke, Mason continued, turning toward her, served in the final Ember rotation before the unit was deactivated. One of the youngest to ever do it. The air thickened. No one laughed now. Hale swallowed hard. "Sir, she was Ember. She was Ember before most of you even enlisted," Mason replied. "Her team prevented 3 international crises that are still sealed. She held a perimeter alone for 14 minutes against an armored force until air support arrived. And she brought home every operator under her command. The Delta operators stared at her with new, stunned eyes. Lena didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply kept checking the comms equipment, as if this conversation wasn't upending the entire room. Mason wasn't finished. You want to mock her tattoo? The general asked the room, his voice quiet but cutting. You're mocking a unit whose existence you were never cleared to learn about. You're mocking history you'll never read. And you're mocking someone who has already done what most of you will spend your careers training to attempt. Silence. Not a shuffle, not a breath. Mason turned back to Lena. Sergeant, I'd like you to brief the team on Ember's old infiltration routing. It might help with tomorrow's operation. Yes, sir. She stepped forward, calm as ever, tapping the map controls. The operators parted for her like she was made of fire. As she began explaining the old Ember signal procedures, simple, elegant, decades ahead of their time, the Delta operators listened with the kind of attention usually reserved for direct combat orders. Hale leaned toward his teammate and whispered, "We laughed at her tattoo, and she ran the unit that became ours." Lena paused, glancing at him. Her expression was unreadable. "Captain," she said softly, "good tattoos fade. Good operators don't." The general smiled. The room didn't laugh again, not out of fear, but out of respect carved from truth. And for the rest of the mission, Delta operators treated the quiet, unassuming sergeant with the same reverence they offered the general, because now they knew the truth. The faded tattoo wasn't poorly made. It was legendary. If you want, I can also add a title, description, hashtags, and keywords.